Okay, so this is exciting. I had no idea I was going to do this today. I thought I was just going to make another audio podcast, but I've been kind of preparing for this apparently for a long time because I have all the gear I need to do this. And actually, I didn't have to do anything with my room, and it looks kind of interesting. I was going to sit on the other side, but then my dogs wanted to sit with me, but I've taken them downstairs. And what just happened a little while ago was our puppy was making some noises downstairs, which is unusual. He's pretty good so far with being down there with our other dog. But I went down and he had gotten himself tangled in a blanket. And that's why he was screeching. He's only like 10 or 11 weeks old. I think he will grow out of it. But it was a little concerning because I don't want him to get stuck like that when I'm not here. But I'm pretty sure he'd be able to get his way out of it. And even if he didn't, he'd just be, traumatized for life, right? Kind of like me. And I think I'm doing okay. So we're going to get back to, because we did the proof of concept podcast. And now for those of you who are just listening, this is a video podcast. But obviously I don't even know how this works when you put things up onto the interwebs. But so what I thought I'd start with, because I was taking a shower and there just became so many ideas while I was in the shower, which is, kind of what happens. I don't know about you, but that's what happens to me when I'm in the shower. And the thought I had after having all those thoughts, and then having lots more, but I'll just go to that middle thought, was that once I get started on a tangent, probably I will once I get started on a thing, then there will be so many tangents that I'll never get to the other things except when I do, because I'll probably swing around and get them at some point. Maybe not today. So the first thing I wanted to share with you was I used to facilitate a lot of groups for, what do they call them? Marginalized youth, right? Which, it's a good description. You get pushed to the margins and everything just kind of rushes by. Everyone's in the stream and you're on the sides. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. You get to explore the same place longer than the people who just swish by. Because basically when you're in the margins, any movement you do is movement that you make. Not completely, but a lot of the movement that you do is movement that you make. Because there's no rules there on the margins. The stream has forgotten about you, which is kind of nice. And I kind of... See, I'm not even going to get started with my first idea. I kind of... What? Anyway, I forget. So I am going to get started with it. But I hear my puppy downstairs. So I'm glad I explained that initially. So here's what's going to happen, because I thought about this before I started. What's going to happen is you will notice that behind me there are stars moving on the wall and like a cosmos. And over here there's a light that keeps changing colors. And you may not know it, but up here there's another light that keeps changing colors. If you look at, what's going on my face, that's happening. And then back here is like my computer screen, and there it goes. I was just gonna say, and eventually it will go onto the screensaver, and right when I was about to say that, it did. can you see how like this is meant to be, right? My dog's not really making noise right now, so I'm gonna tell this little story. I was just watching the second season of The Boyfriend yesterday. I finished the last thing, and I like to say that I can't binge anything, but I mean, I think the first episode of that, or the first season, came out 2 years ago, and I've been kind of waiting for it. And so how this is related is because on the last episode, all the couples were talking about how they felt like it was fate that they met. And, I pointed to the thing and was about to tell you that the screensaver would eventually come on, and on cue it did. I set up my camera, and I didn't have to do anything to my room. This is just what my room looks like. And here I am. But I do hear my dog downstairs now. So here's what's going to happen. You have a lot of sensory stuff going on here. And so while I'm going and getting my dogs, which they're little, they're miniature Dachshunds, so I can grab them both, one with each hand. And I'm going to bring them up here. While I'm doing that, even if you're listening, I mean, you can fast forward if you want to. You can do anything that you want to. I don't really care. In fact, most of my stuff, you can drop in anywhere you want to it and just start watching it from there. I'm saying this confidently as if I know, because this is only the second time I've done this. The first time was just audio, and this is video. So anyway, while I'm going to pick them up, you have lots of things to engage with. If you know about John Cage's 4.33, 4 minutes and 33 seconds, you can pretend that that's the music that is playing, although I may put music to this, in which case you may actually have some music, or I may just fuck with you, and if I had music on, and then I'm going to turn it off while I'm going downstairs so you can listen to. But really, I'm convinced that I have had John Cage's 4 minutes and 33 seconds on repeat my entire life. So maybe you have too. Anyway, I'm going to go get my dogs, and then we'll see what happens. There they are. Aren't they cute? Luna is a little over 2, and then we have the puppy named Milo. Okay. Good. I think everything's working here. I don't know for sure, but we will soon find out. I mean, in about I imagine I'm going to make this. The last one was an hour and a half. My dog's trying to bite on my headphones. Okay. The last one was like an hour and a half. And then I got another 5 minutes added to it because I added an introduction. I think what we'll do with this one is, rather than do an introduction, at the end there will be a question period. And since you are not here, I'm going to listen to the whole thing back and see what questions you might have. And then I'm going to ask myself them. And so you get your answers. Okay? It's very presumptive of me. I understand that. But, I'm doing a whole a shtick here. And that's just part of it. So the thing I was going to start with, which I've already kind of started with, but I used to run programs with marginalized youth, right? I mean, like, got multi-year funding from Health Canada and Public Health Agency from Canada, and Fraser Health Authority. Not me, my organization that I was executive director of. And so in those, probably someone did this, probably I brought in some kind of trainer or something to train me and other people in our organization. I think it might have been, I don't know. It was young people. It was very lovely. Even though that was like 10, 11, 12 years ago, they were still young people to me at that time. And I love seeing young people teach me new things. It's, what could be better than that? No, I mean that. Anyway, probably what one of these young people and one of these, I think it was an anti-oppression group or something like that went out and talked to youth groups. Or probably to adult groups too, to kind of teach them about anti-oppression. But I brought them in officially probably to work with the youth I was working with, but of course I learned a lot. 2014, in case you're keeping track. So they had a check-in exercise, I think. Maybe this came from somewhere else, but they had a check-in exercise where you were supposed to tell a story about a piece of your clothing, which I thought was brilliant because it kind of people can choose to be as vulnerable as they wish to be with that, right? We all already see their clothes. If their clothes were a problem for them, they've already had that, right? Because we're looking at them. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about economic marginalization, right? Anyway. So I'm not going to end up doing the question and answer at the end. So I'm jumping in instead because there's an important piece here. The culture of all the groups that we did, the way it started, the bedrock it was built on was the appropriateness of passing, right? And this was before we do any kind of talking about anything where anyone might be invited into the space and to contribute or participate in what's going on in the space. We made it clear that we don't just accept passing or just observing, or, if you're wearing a sweatshirt and it has a zipper on the hood and you just close that, and then there's like a skull face on the hood. If you want to sit in the meeting like that the entire time, we're going to celebrate that. We're not going to tolerate it or accept it. That is you feeling safe. And someone who would do that probably the only place they would really already feel safe doing that would be in the closet or something, or in their room if they thought it was safe and no one would come in and see that they were sitting there like that. And there's a lot of this. Anyway, I think the way that I'm crying about it probably tells you all you need to know. But I wanted to jump in and just put that there. That when we did a check-in, and when the check-in question was, so we're going to do a check-in. This would be the introduction. So the group has decided, we had got a bunch of, this is kind of an introduction that we would give to a new youth who might join us. We've had all these meetings, in those meetings, we've kind of figured out over time how we're going to run our meetings. And part of it is that it's never going to be a fixed process, right? Like that always, if someone has a suggestion that's either for them or for somebody else. So if it's your suggestion and it's something that you need, if you don't want to own that, but you still feel confident to say it, then you can say, well, I think some people might feel better if, in this case, when we do check-in, there's an explicit message made every single time, especially if there's new people in the room, that this is, the check-in is, even if you don't check in, that's you checking in, right? Your check-in is that, it could be that you don't do well in groups. And there's people who are like that, right? Some people do great in a triad. Some people only do good in a dyad. Some people love groups. Some people, they'd rather write something and give it to you, later. Some people, they don't want to do any of that, right? But for some reason they want to be here, right? They want to be here for other people, right? Maybe your contribution that you want to make to the group is to make the group a group, right? So when we do a check-in, anyone can suggest what it is. If you want some suggestions, I've been in a lot of groups. There are some that I've come up with. There's some that I've heard other people do. There's ones that, so there's nothing magical about the check-in question that we're going to do today, right? Some other human came up with it, probably was influenced by other things. So it's not like it just arrived like foam from Aphrodite came out of foam out of somebody's, not Uranus, but anyway, yeah, so there's nothing special about this. And if you want to bring forward a check-in question, there doesn't have to be anything special about it either, right? Because there is nothing special in the world, except that everything is special in the world, because it's really hard to define that we even exist, right? There's nothing we can do to prove that. And so why should we give a shit what check-in question we do? It's just fucking something to do if you want to. or it's something, and in fact, there's no way to not do it. Because even in passing, that's you doing it. Right? And there's people here who can tell you that they did that for months. I'm not going to point them out, but they can raise their hand if they want to. Or not. And maybe some of the people I'm thinking about aren't even here. But I'm thinking about them. So, that's how, in spirit, that's how those introductions. So, now we'll carry on with the other video. Anyway, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to go. So, first thing I want to point to is my headphones. I'm going to maybe do something kind of thorough here. I don't know. But my headphones, I'm thinking of Tim Miller from The Bulwark when I have these in as I'm talking. But there's an interesting story there, because the reason I was interested in him, or ever became interested in him, is because I know Tim Miller, the performance artist, and they both happen to be gay. And I don't know, I really liked when I don't think he wears these anymore, but Tim Miller used to wear a chain of pearls around his neck when he was talking on whatever, Fox News. And I can relate to that, because to not wearing the pearls anymore, if that's what he's doing. I wore long earrings when I was a kid. I had my hair dyed all kinds of colors. Sometimes I had much more hair. But sometimes I would bleach out my hair, kind of like it is now, but more bleachy. And then I would color it with pens in the morning, and then put little bows of material, from ripped up old sheets. And so I'd go to school, I think already as president of the high school, but maybe that was when I was the junior, the junior vice president. So those are the only two positions I ever held in high school. See, we're going to go on lots of tangents. In elementary school, I was vice president of my my middle school. In my middle school, I was vice president. And there is a song about this. Forget what it's called. But if there's somewhere that I can link it, I will. It's from my master's thesis, my second master's thesis. That's called Stewarding Experience, Representing a Journey Toward and then Away from Identifying as an Addict. It's a lot to take in. I tried to say that slowly so you could kind of let it hit you. Maybe I'll say it one more time. Stewarding Experience, Representing. Okay, so the idea there is it's a re with a dash and presenting. So bringing back into the present is the idea there. I don't think you can really do that, but every time we do anything, we're representing, I believe. I've been talking about how language is kind of a habit, and there was some of that in the first episode where I was talking about how I taught myself how to tie shoes and that I learned like language. And the question was, what can noises and shoelaces do that will make mom smile? And so I think most of our learning, I'm making the case right here in front of you. You're the first to hear it. The case is that, no, I forget the case. Oh, the case is that language, and probably every other behavior for humans, is about, it's a mechanism with which we evoke responses from our brethren. Do the same thing with dogs. It's just language isn't as big of a part of it. And in some ways, I would say that for humans, language is actually just a very, very small and almost inconsequential part of it too. Because, the interesting thing is, I've seen Gabor Mate a number of times speak. I think I've spoken to him a couple times. He won't remember me. But he says that and I think he got this from somewhere else, and he credited them, but I'm not going to do that. It's not my style. I'm going to go searching on AI to see who did this. But his idea was that he put across was that, how do you know authenticity? And the question isn't like, what is authenticity? And so what he puts forward is this. He posits that you know authenticity because you feel it, right? So I'm kind of dealing with that right now, in real time. I do not want to go in a direction that's going to make me feel inauthentic. But I'm pretty confident that I can do that, because I just am. So I'm not sitting here worrying about it. I am thinking about where I was going before that tangent happened. Anyway, so Tim Miller. All right. So I knew Tim Miller, the performance artist. One time I wrote which I've talked about in a number of my podcasts that are before this one. I'm not sure, because I came up with a season title for season 5 of my Danger Vicious Dog podcast. And the season title is It's Alive and Fixed. And that's kind of a good name for what I'm doing here, right? So I don't know what's going to happen exactly. That was another one of the thoughts. See, I'm getting to a bunch of the thoughts that I had while I was in the shower. So these are, I was going to, if I don't tell you this, I'm going to have to ask it at the end. So I had this play, and it had basically the way I've written about it is that I was about 26 when I was writing it, 26, 27. And the way I've talked about it is I was just like pushing all the buttons that I could to see what lights turned on. And when I say pushing buttons, like crossing all the third, whatever the electric third rails. So I was like pushing the button of race, pushing the button of gender, pushing the button of age, pushing the button of sexuality, and just trying to push it in the right way where the light sputters, right? Doesn't turn on, doesn't turn off, it just kind of doesn't know what to do. And that's what that whole play was just like pushing buttons, all the buttons I could possibly find, in the exact way that will get them to sputter. And so the audience has no idea if they've turned on or if they've turned off. They don't know whether to look away. They don't know whether to look at it, and so here's an interesting thing, because one of the things I did here, I'm going to put myself a little bit on the spot here, but I'll tell you the story about it first. So, all right, there's a lot to unpack here. I was doing a lot of performance art. So this is 1991, 92. I think I'd gotten to the point where my friends would ask me what I'm doing, probably because they were concerned about me. They always thought I was weird, but now I had become a little bit alarming to them. Like, they probably were wondering, should they say something? Should they try to intervene in some way? But anyway, when they'd ask, well, what are you doing? My answer would be, I have no plans, and I have no plans for any plans. I don't think at that time that I then tagged on to the end of it, that is my plan. I don't even know if I would do that now. I would want you to come to that yourself or not. And if you don't, then, you have some growing to do. Oh my God, that's so mean. Do you feel called out? That's what I like doing, right? Because that was not mean. It really wasn't. It was brutal, but I don't think it was mean. We can disagree too, and I don't care about that either. So, anyway, back to this is about the age button that I pushed in my play. The play was called If I Were Lost. You can even look it up on the internet. It got a pretty nice review from the Los Angeles Times, and it is there. So put in If I Were Lost. You can put in, since I'm telling you this already, you can put in the name Brian Gross. There's also an art gallery or something like that in San Francisco called Brian Gross. That's the main one that you'll get when you put my name in, at least at this point. But you could make me go high, although everyone's using AI now, so I don't know if there's a way to get high on that is probably coming. We're gonna be able to get paid. I don't know. It's very interesting, how they're gonna further monetize the whole AI thing. I didn't see the Facebook thing coming, and I still have no idea what they do, but anyway, I don't think I really cared. I still don't care. So I was in this state where my plan was that I have no plans, and I don't have any plans for any plans. And that's my plan. But I was working as a executive assistant in a freight company in Inglewood, California, for the regional vice president. And what I think he liked about me so much was that I was the original AI. He could spew all kinds of shit at me about how angry he is about this or that, and how annoying it is that he's already told people about this and that, and still this fucking shit is happening, and blah 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 blah. And then I would just write a very nice, direct, non-offensive letter for him based on what he told me. So I was the original AI. Everyone uses AI for that now. And I do use a lot of M dashes. So I use more ellipses, but I do use a lot of M dashes. I use way too many ellipses. I speak in ellipses, if you haven't noticed. You could just spend the rest of the time just kind of, maybe make it a drinking game, right? Every time, and I think I've already you may already be drunk if you decided to do this before now, or maybe you took it, rewound it to the beginning, started over, and you are just flat on your back now. So, yeah, you could do that. I would love that, right? If you videotaped yourself doing it, I will not watch it, but if that's all you're doing, it could be meta. Like, you could give it to me, and then I could put it up on my screen. Like, I could just I could have myself in the middle. I could have myself in the middle here, and then all of you drinking every time I have an ellipsis. I would just put that around it. And if it gets to be a lot of things, then I'm going to need help from AI, right? To somehow to take all of those videos and put them up here. And if there's not enough room to start cycling through them, so you can always see yourself drinking every time there's an ellipsis in my vocal delivery. You ready for this? This is not alcohol. I have had a little bit of THC. Oh, by the way, I'm like having a day off from work because I'm settling in my new puppy. And that's kind of why I've been able to get to all this stuff. I still have, I have to go work tomorrow, but then the day after that, I will have another day off, which will lead into basically become a 3-day week. And then we're hoping that our dogs are okay to just be home alone together while we're at work after that. So, usually that's been fine, and the dog is settling in really well. Aside from that situation where he got tangled up in the blanket. I don't want him to do that. We had the last boy that we had, his name was Oscar, and he got dementia. And this was during the pandemic, and I was mostly working from home. And so he would walk in circles around in the house, and sometimes his circles would drift, and so he'd end up circling into a corner, and he had forgotten, I don't know if he ever knew it, but he had forgotten how to back up, or that he could back up, and probably his vision had gone, and to some extent, or he just couldn't process it. And so he'd get stuck in a corner and he'd just start screaming and yelling, and I was home, so I went and picked him up and put him somewhere where he could circle, where it would take a while for him to drift into another corner. I'm really glad Because, I mean, you may be listening to this and going, oh my God, what a horrible life for a dog. And, you know, you may be right. Also, here's a big thing. Like when I do counseling, especially for loved ones of people who are struggling, as if they, you know, that's a different, it's not a different category, right? The loved one is also struggling. They're struggling with the same thing, their struggle. But God, I forgot what I was going to say there. Oh yeah, if you're struggling with somebody, often you, I mean, this is probably a human, just one of those risks that come with being human, and especially having children in a world with what Bruce Alexander calls dislocation, right? So the way I like to describe that is like if having a dislocated arm means that the arm's there and you're like, oh well, wow, I have an arm, yay, but you can't do shit with it. So it's this sense of, you know, I'm full, I have everything, I've got everything I need, and none of it works, right? That's dislocation. Or that is my take on dislocation. And every time that I tell you what something is, that's my take on it. I do read these things or parts of them. Or I just hear about an idea and it sparks something for me. And then I make up my own meaning for it that makes sense to me. So that is my definition of Bruce Alexander's dislocation. Am I pushing buttons? I hope so. I like doing that. So when you're dislocated and you're a parent and your child is struggling, so you're struggling, and then you may come up with a way to interact with your child that feels actually pretty meaningful to you, right? So what are you going to do with that? You're going to probably start, at least part of you is going to start thinking that that's the right way to handle the situation, right? Your child is struggling. You found out a way to stay in their life, to feel like they know that you love them, but still have boundaries that you can handle, or that allow you to keep functioning. And I'm getting ahead of the story here because you don't realize that. What you're probably thinking is this is the right way to handle a situation like this, right? Now, probably the first thing that you're thinking is, so then you start judging everybody else, right? This person's having this problem, and, you know, I do this with my son or daughter, or gender fluid child. But then, here's what happens. You are getting coffee in the morning, and you know it's close to Labor Day, and you realize that you just have not worn white all summer, and you know that after Labor Day you're not supposed to wear white, and you don't usually wear white for a reason, and that's because you're really clumsy. But because you want to make sure you wear white so that you can stop wearing white at Labor Day, you're wearing white. And you got your coffee. And you know what happens after that, right? You're at work already, and you don't have another shirt. And let's say your job is as a counselor. Okay, so you don't want to smell like coffee. You don't want to look like you've spilled coffee all over yourself when you go to see the next person you're seeing. I mean, you could drive home. But what you'd rather do is just not spill that fucking coffee on your shirt. So what do? You fall and you hit your head on something really hard. And the coffee spills everywhere. And maybe you pass out a little. But you know you did something really, really significant to your head. And so now, for a while at least, you are not going to have the same resilience. You're not going to have the same you're not going to be able to have the same relationship with your son or daughter or gender fluid child anymore. Or gender creative. I'm throwing in all of these things because I think what I'm telling you is very true. And if anyone kind of stumbles on this and they hear me talking about something that might really relate to them, and then they have me throwing in all this culture war terminology, they're just going to have to deal with it, because that might be part of the problem, right? Part of the problem might be, and this is another thing that parents do, right? And it is understandable as a human being. Parents like to be the problem. Why? Because then they can be the solution. It is only once their child has a problem that the parents would like to be the problem, right? Before that, they don't want to be the problem. But once there is a problem, they want that problem solved. And the easiest way to do that is if they are the problem, right? Not for all parents. Some parents just are fucking pissed, right? But there's probably a mix of that, right? Probably everyone has the sense that maybe I'm the problem. And probably also people think, what a fucking problem my fucking child is. And somebody needs to fix this. And so I'm going to take this child of mine to a counselor. And if your child says they're gay and it's 1988, so that was the situation that my mom was in. I could not say more than 2 words. It's probably an exaggeration, but that's what it felt like. Why? Well, because the moment I said 2 words, I thought, what am I gonna say after this? And I think I put pressure on myself to resolve things. And I knew that in no way could I finish a sentence and actually resolve anything at all, right? That's probably why I use so many ellipses. Because I don't like finishing sentences. I still don't. Maybe everything I'm saying is just 2 words, and then another 2 words, and then another 2 words. Anyway, yeah, I had changed my name. I was writing, 12-page poems. I'm not going to go. There's a lot of details there. I think I'm going to skip them, though. I was writing 12-page poems with titles like I Hate You to my parents. And sending them to them without a return address, because I didn't want them to know what my current name was. And unbeknownst to me, one of my brothers was going to their house every day and going through their mail, because I guess they had seen what my hate mail did to my parents, and they did not want to see it happen more. So he intercepted their the letters that I left for. And actually, he found one recently. I wish I could find it for you and read it to you. And I think I put it in some of my writing. So eventually we may get to it. Because they lived in a really nice house. And and I judged them for that. Do I judge them anymore? I mean, no more than I judge myself for living on stolen, unceded land in Turtle Island. So there's some more culture wars tip for you. Deal with it. This is fun. Okay. So where was I going with that? It was something, it had something to do with sex, but I'm trying to remember what it was. Anyway, I haven't even got to where the last podcast let off. And if you listen to the last podcast, most of it was just this one scene of me. I was president of my high school. I actually became president before I accidentally came out. Up until very recently, I thought, I really wasn't the first openly gay president, because nobody knew I was gay when they voted for me. However, at my speech, right? And I'll tell you a little bit about this speech, because after my speech, there were no more speeches allowed for school elections, at least for a while. I don't know if they ever came back, but it's too good of a story to not tell you. Okay. And it's in so when I get to this, if I ever go back to, what I was doing in the first thing, then I'll just skip over it. Or maybe I'll add more. My dad, I like to say that he's kind of a populist. I don't know if he would identify himself that way. He definitely identifies himself as a conservative. And I think his populism is more pragmatic than that he is an actual populist. But the result is pretty much the same, right? His thought is that, the electorate has become, I don't know if I thought it always was, but has become more and more populist, right? Where they want to hear from their potential leaders or their leaders. They want to follow someone who says what they're thinking. Okay, this is another concept. I have not looked this up. I heard about populism and I figured out what it meant for myself, and that's it. Populism is when you have a whole bunch of the populace or anyone who wants to hear their leaders saying what they are thinking. There's a big mistake in populism. It's not a mistake. It's a feature. There's a big feature in populism because our brains, the things that create our thoughts, they basically, and I'm going to just make a really broad statement here. You can deal with it however you want. That's called social constructive learning, right? I'm throwing ideas at you and I'm not telling you how to think about them, right? I have to do that with a certain amount of certainty. And you know what? I'm going on a tangent again. I'm going to totally forget what I'm talking about here. Populism. So throwing things out at you, you get to figure out how to deal with them. You know, if they're valuable to you. Main thing I think I am, at least right at this moment, the main thing I think that I am doing is modeling psychological flexibility. Another buzzword that I've made up my own definition for. Basically, psychological flexibility is kind of doing what I'm doing here, where you're in a process of exploration, not in a process of resolution, right? Or coming to conclusions. So through this process, probably do this most of my life, because it's probably my easiest mode to be truthful, which is not to say it's easy. It is not easy, but it's the mode that gives me the most ease, right? You can probably, I'm looking at myself in the camera and trying to find it, and I can see that I'm very much at ease. It's kind of like what Gabor Mate said about, I never finished that one, so now I'm going to finish it, I think. I don't think I did finish it. What Gabor Mate said is that you know authenticity because you feel it, right? And so you are going to have a sense that, and this is why I'm throwing in all these fucking cultural war stuff, because I'm doing this in a way where your attention has been changed from what is this guy talking about to how does this guy think? And so there's no way to not become curious when what your stance is how does this guy think? Right? You're gonna be curious. You can't avoid it. You can turn me off, but I'm also moving so smoothly through things that you're having no problem following me. And that may be a fairly unusual experience. It may be a really normal experience for you, for all I know, but maybe a fairly unusual experience that you're not sitting here thinking about what I'm saying. You're following my thought because you're curious what I'm gonna think next, because you want to understand my thought process, and probably you are recognizing that it's similar to your thought process, and that's making you even more curious if you weren't already curious. or you live like this, and then you're just like, oh, this is fun. Or you've turned it off, and that's fine too. I am not preaching anything here. I'm not, it's like that person who dropped their coffee and knocked their head, right? There's no shame in what level of complexity you can deal with. But actually, I think what I'm doing here actually might be good for someone who is struggling with their thinking capacities, because I'm not asking you to do anything that you're not going to do anyway, right? You don't have to, there's no performance here. There's no kind of, what kind of comment can I make on this that'll be clever, right? You're not going to be commenting on the content. You're going to be commenting on the experience, and that you don't have to think about, right? And I don't care if you comment. So there's that too. This is kind of fun. It's fun, like watching myself do this thing that I did. The first one that I did was, I think it was on Sunday, or maybe it was on Saturday, and then I spent all Sunday making the music for it, and then I posted it that night. And here I am on Wednesday doing the second one and hoping that all my tech is working, that there's actually a recording of my voice. And we're getting up to an hour. I don't know. I wonder if I should stop, because I think the hour and a half, the reason for the hour and a half the last time, actually, this is a lie. But when I looked back at it, I thought, an hour and a half, that is appropriate for a live show. And what I mean is an in-person live show with an intermission, right? We're not talking a full live show where you sit there for a fucking hour and a half. I mean, with this format, because it's video, you can easily stop it and come back to it, I guess. Would you? I don't know that I would. I would probably watch as much as I could bear, and then I would not go. Well, I mean, there's some things. I mean, I have watched a lot of, you may notice this, and I actually talk about it in some of the stuff that even in some of the past parts of this podcast, if this is not going to become a separate podcast called It's Alive and Fixed. But I've talked about Yuval Noah Harari. And, I used to do that because he has some pretty long interviews that he does. And I used to watch them and then pause them, go do something else, and then come back and watch the rest. But I love what he's synthesized. I also love that he talks about how in a few years AI will write all the books, and he's fine with that. And I think, he's kind of illustrating that because, for me, I can't really watch him anymore because it's repetitive. And I don't think for me, it's repetitive. I'm going to probably, maybe I already have told you some things that were inspired by his synthesis. But, so I could make this an hour. We're at 56 minutes and 45 seconds. And I was going to do that question and answer at the end. So I think I don't know if I'm actually going to do that because this felt pretty clean. And actually what was going on with it, which is interesting, just for me, for knowledge, is that it doesn't matter like the last time. Like the last one, I kept talking about the concept of outing, right? And I was saying that, this is how I'll finish this off. But I was talking about how, and if it goes over an hour, who cares? I was talking about how in 1987, when I got expelled from school, outing was not a thing because more or less no one was out. And you know what the outing thing is. That's where rather than letting someone out themselves as whatever, at the time I was referring to homosexuality, which I love how I framed that in the last podcast, where I don't know that it was exactly true for me at the time, but there wasn't a lot to go on, right? So it's possible that was part of what was going on. But instead of framing homophobia as a fear of homosexuals, I made it broader. So homophobia and whatever. I'll just use that. We could use transphobia if we wanted to. We could use any phobia. I mean, probably not arachnophobia. That's more instinctual. But homophobia, the way I framed it in the last podcast, and it bears repeating here, even if you've listened to the last one. I framed it as fear of someone who knows what pleases them and engages in that pleasing thing. Right? So it's not about identity. It's not about a category of person. It's just about, you know what? I know what makes me happy. That's a big word. I think I just want to go with the pleasure, because undeniably, when I love someone, which I do, I've been with somebody, I'm going to get teary-eyed now. I've been with somebody for going on 26 years. And that gives me a lot of, it's not the fact that we've been together for 26 years, although there is a lot to love in all of that. And there's a lot to love about how it's impossible to even say. When I was watching The Boyfriend last night, right? Maybe we'll go to an hour and a half, who knows? I was watching The Boyfriend last night, and because you can pause this if you want to, and come back to it if it so pleases you. But I'll tell you that wherever I end, it's going to feel like this. So, there is not going to be a resolution. What I said in the last one was that I'm building a tapestry with the intention for the tapestry to have no edges. So you cannot complete a tapestry that has no edges, ever. So you can turn this on or drop in anywhere you want, and you will get the same sense of frayed edges, right? There'd be a lot of threads that do not finish, because none of them do. Isn't that fun? Yeah, so I don't know. I said I was going to finish something. And then I told you that I will never finish anything. So maybe I should just stop. Do you want to see the dogs again? They've been sleeping behind me. I know you do. Oh my God, Milo is on his back. And he looks so cute. but I'm not going to grab the phone out of the case. So I'm just going to, oh my God, I don't want to bother him. He's so cute. But he's really cute. So you want to see him. Speaking of pleasure. He just sighed. You probably heard him. Okay, bye.